Hey guys, Lucas Soccer here. Today I have the how to beat Yummy video for this next format. I know everybody's starting to open up their packs, open up their product, get their new decks. Let's learn how to beat all the other ones. Here in this video, we're going to look at all of the different side deck cards and main deck options to beat Yummy, as I think Yummy is still one of the most prevalent decks in the TCG. And we're going to look at how we're really supposed to strategize and plan to play against that deck. Starting off here, we have Bestials. Bestials are really, really impactful versus this deck. Not only because it's going to hinder the deck from comboing, but also as board breakers. Being able to top deck into a hand trap is something that hasn't been very popular in a very long time. The last time we were able to top deck hand traps and use them very, very effectively on our own turn, with just about every hand trap you could draw, it was like Tier Lament. You can like argue it was like that for Malice, but you were still playing things like Valors in your deck that just weren't always that good top deck card. I guess like somewhat towards the end of like Malice format with like a little bit after Providence, we were kind of in a format where every time you top decked a hand trap, like it was pretty usable into the board. But it's really back to Tier Found, where every single form of non-engine that you top decked was really good going into a board, as well as like trying to prevent the board. But Bestials are really, really synergetic with that kind of interaction that we're looking for. So you can Bestial to stop their minion target. That's going to be one cool thing you can do. You can also Bestial to stop the Snatchy from coming back during your opponent's turn. Or if you can just Bestial to like take a Synchro out of rotation. If they go Metal Marcher effect, because Metal Marcher does target to special back a tuner from grave. If you can Magnum it there and take a Synchro monster just completely out of rotation, that's also a very, very good point to Bestial. Moving over, we have Ghost Ogre. There is two main spots to Ghost Ogre on your opponent's turn if they're playing Yummy. And then on your turn, you can Ghost Ogre as well. I will say Ghost Ogre is a little bit of a hit or miss, because if they do set up a Herald of Arclight, let me pull them up here. Herald, I can spell. There's so many of them. Okay, this guy. Yeah, if he's on their field, you can't actually Ghost Ogre, because Ghost Ogre says it specifically has to go to the graveyard, and because Herald has like the random like floodgate effect of it, it says any monster sent from the hand order to the graveyard is banished instead. We can't even activate Ghost Ogre here, but most of the time they're really not going to be getting to Ghost Ogre. Getting to Herald if you have a Ghost Ogre in your hand. The 2 points where you can Ghost Ogre them on their turn is either when they summon the Snatchy and they use the Snatchy effect to place a field spell. If you Ogre them there, that's going to kind of cut them off from playing. The only way they have an extender to continue playing is if their normal summon was specifically Cupsy, which people are starting to play things like Puri Map in order to get more consistency and more copies of Cupsy in the deck. Or if they have something like Hornet Drones, right? But usually if they have Hornet Drones, they're going to start with it. So that's one point. You can Ogre on the Snatchy. You can also Ogre on the Minion. Like if you want to challenge them having additional starters in their hand, you can Ogre the Minion. That's going to cut off their grind game a little bit more. But also it's going to put the Minion in like a vulnerable spot in the graveyard to where you could probably like banish it or do something to remove it. There's a lot of different cards right now that like remove things from the field and graveyard. Specifically like Canine Werewolf. That card has an additional effect, like if you use his effect on your turn, actually. So like if you use the quick play spell to upgrade, you can use the effect to detach. It's going to banish a card on the field, but also banish one from graveyard. You can use that to try to clear their minion. And once that minion's gone, it is really, really tough. Let's go ahead and look at that. Minion here says, Yummy monsters you control gain 500 attack for each light beast monster on the field. I just had a money match with Triff recently. It was for $200. You guys probably saw it on DB Grinder's channel. If you have not, go check him out in the description. DB Grinder's the GOAT. I'll probably forget to put up there, but just look up DB Grinder. You guys probably know who he is. I lost to Triff when I was playing Yummy, simply for the fact that he SP'd my minion, and then he set an Ash Blossom as his top deck, and I could not out the Ash Blossom, and eventually he killed me, because I had no way to get bigger than 1800. That is a very, very real thing to do. If you have the ability to try to force a grind game with Yummy, and you can SP target their field spell and try to clear it out forever, that is going to put you in a really, really good spot against them and just kind of make it to where you are really chilling for the rest of the situation. You can do that with SP, but also there's things like Canine Werewolf, like I mentioned, that lets you banish a card from the graveyard. Or if you're playing Malice, being able to banish it that way as well is really, really impactful. And then we have Bell. Bell is really, really cool and kind of goes hand in hand with Impulse. Being able to Bell on the Synchro Monster's effect to tag out basically just cuts them off of a really, really cool interaction. Another good thing with Bell and Impulse is they work really, really good into the half boards that this deck makes. So usually if you activate like a Wallows or Paralia against this deck, not really Paralia, in some hands it will prevent them a little bit more. But specifically for Wallows, you activate for Wallows or even Meows versus that deck, they're going to go for like a really simplified board of either one Synchro Monster or like Snatchy plus one monster on their field and pass. If you can put them on that board, being able to either Bell on their Synchro Monster's tag out effect or being able to Bell on the surprise after putting them on a half board is fantastic, right? It just fully cuts them off of their engine, and being able to use hand traps aggressively like that is really, really amazing. Having something that is both defensive and offensive as a non-engine is really what you want in a card. Impulse does almost the exact same thing, except it has a little bit more versatility, specifically for countering their hand traps. Like if they have something like a Nibiru in their deck or some some Yummy players are even starting to play like a Zuna as a hand trap in their deck because that deck has a little bit of extra deck room, to where you could play like a Valon or a Nashnai, whatever you decide to actually play in it. But it does have some room there that you can counter it. So I think Impulse is fantastic, obviously, if you can play that card in your deck, and it's going to be very, very key for beating Yummy. Then you have things like Droplet. Droplet is a phenomenal card. It kind of has the same downside as Herald, though, to where if you activate Droplet, you can't send a monster from your hand, so you have to send one from your field. And the reason you couldn't send a monster is because they have the Herald of Arclight on their field, which says you can't send monsters from your hand or deck to the graveyard, because they're going to be banished instead. And since it's cost, you just can't do that. So that's something to be aware of. That Droplet is going to be a good card, but specifically into that matchup, if they make a Herald, you're going to have to send a monster from your field. So just sequence your turn correctly to where you'll be able to get that without hurting yourself too much. All right. Last and final, like, main deckable card here that we have. It's Call by the Grave. Call by the Grave is very, very good against decks that use a lot of the similar cards in their disruptions and their combo. So being able to use Call by the Grave on like a Snatchy from their graveyard as they're trying to combo is going to be fantastic. But also, like, going second into the board, if you can Called by successfully on a Snatchy, it's going to turn off a lot of the disruptions. Like almost all of the disruptions that it has, they're only going to really be getting like the cookie tag out pop at that point. They're also going to get the disruptions from like Surprise, but I'd much rather deal with that than deal with the entire Yummy board. You know, I'm sure you guys feel almost exactly the same. Worst case scenario with Call by the Grave, you can always use this to hit a hand trap, or Herald actually attributes for cost for the negates. You can always use Call by to push that through if that's the main thing that's stopping you from playing the game. Let's look at some side deck options for the deck. Starting off, we have Contact C here. This is a major one that people are really worried about that are playing Yummy. I will be totally honest. I am not the biggest fan of this card. I think Julien said it very, very well when we were talking about our hand trap tier list. He said this is a homework check. Basically checks to see if your opponents researched the format or basically done their homework or they're prepared for certain interactions. At a lower tier level and at the beginning of the format, this card may be really good. But honestly, on the long run, this card is not going to be the card that you think it is. There are a lot of different ways to counter Contact C. Some of the most popular ones right now are Cross Sheet. There's a few other ones that I think are personally better. Like, a lot of people are starting to play one Ausa in their deck in case they get Contact Seed, because what they'll do is they'll link away the Contact Seed plus any monster that they got, and then the Contact Seed is obviously going to go to their graveyard, so then you can use the Ausa to take the Contact Seed. It kind of goes down here, if you guys can see it, and then from there you can actually link away the Contact Seed and the Ausa into SP. You can use SP to either target a card that they control, or if you're just wanting to clear your field, so you could open up something like Obedient Schooled or like Hornet Drones, you could SP target itself, banish it, just kind of clear it out of rotation. That way you have the ability to use those cards. The other options you could play is Moon and Requiem. You don't have to play any other Fiendsmith cards with these, but you can play Moon and Requiem because it just turns the Contact C body and then any like Yummy monster you may control into Moon, and then you can turn the Moon into Requiem. And since Requiem is a Link 1 monster to let you special all of like the other Yummy names from your hand onto the field, but you can also synchro with that Requiem, so you're getting a lot of value out of it. So basically all I'm saying is that there are outs to be aware of. And if you're playing Yummy, then you should absolutely know of all of these options. Inside of the Yummy spreadsheet, you guys can check that out in the description box down below. It's got all of the links to all of our spreadsheets if you guys are interested in it. You don't have to. Once again, if you don't like the product, then you do not have to buy it. But if you're wanting to find out, then go check it out. I think it's really good value. I've spent a lot of time on it. It has all of these things already in there. So you are getting information that is probably a little bit delayed to everybody else. Just from other YouTubers and other people that provide information, not finding out these things until now. But the Moon and Requiem stuff is like one of the most common things that I think, and one of the most uprising ways to play around Contact C. And that's really why I don't like Contact C, but I think it is something to consider on like a lower tier level or early on to the format. Then we have Pankratops. Pankratops is a really good card. The only issue that I have with Pankratops is that it just doesn't do enough. Usually when you play like a side deck card, you want it to like fully counter their board or be super, super impactful and maybe turn ending. All Pankratops does is really put them on a half board. And what I mean is, like, even if they go for the full board, once you summon Pank and you go battle phase, I mean, you're maybe clearing like a Herald of Arclight. You're maybe clearing like their Snatchy because you're going to be able to chain Pankratops and pop it when they try to synchro summon. But they're still going to have like Surprise to special summon back and Surprise, the synchro monster they summon Surprise to tag out, which is going to get them back playing the game again. So basically, we're only having about half of their board and we're wasting our battle phase. So I don't think Pankratops is the best option. I do really like Dark Roller though, because one thing that's different about Dark Roller is that it outs everything that you can look at, and then whenever they use their Surprise, you do have the ability to go battle phase and just out him there. Being able to out a synchro monster after you Dark Ruler just with the battle phase is such a unique thing that the other cards don't provide to us. The other cards we can look at here is Book of Eclipse. I think the Book of Eclipse is phenomenal. Once again, if you guys saw my board breaker tier list, I did that with Julien. That's going to be on his channel. I'll put his channel in the description box down below. I won't forget on that one. He's the GOAT. DB Grinder's got enough clout. And he's also the GOAT, but Julien's the GOATer. Okay. Anyways, Book of Eclipse covers basically every matchup going first. Being able to use this card as like a go first card, but also as like a board breaker into like one of the most prevalent decks, but also like into Canine Vanquish Soul, you can use this card very, very aggressively as well. Basically trades with all of their disruptions. One thing that this card does into the Canine Vanquish Soul board specifically, if we're hedging our bets on what cards have a right or coverage, is this also trades with the Canine upgrade spell. Because if you can Book of Moon their Ripper, then they're not going to get the Ripper negate, but also they can't use the Quick Play spell to upgrade it. So one other cool interaction there. I will say this card does have some downsides in the fact that it can get Ash Blossom, but besides that, it really doesn't have any other bad suits with it. It's a fantastic card. Then these last two things I want to talk about here. Raigeki. Raigeki is basically the same thing as Book of Eclipse, except if they do have... Ooh, DB's dying. Ooh, we're back. Okay. Except if they do have things like Herald, they'll be able to negate this. Same thing as Book of Eclipse. The only thing is this card doesn't have go first coverage with it. I think if you were wanting to side deck a board breaker, though, that you just wanted to have full coverage into the format, Raigeki's not bad. Being able to just clear the field is obviously good. And whatever stragglers are left that they've been able to revive with things like Surprise, you'll be able to go battle phase for and deal with. And then finally, the very last card here I want to talk about is Super Poly. This is not a card that you can play in every deck, but if you can play it, you should definitely do it. Super Poly does a lot of damage into the Yummy board. Being able to like fusion with their Herald of Arclight and maybe like a Synchro monster that they had previously, or even like a I don't know, like a Snatchy. If they got a Snatchy on their field, being able to Super Poly with that, go into Mud Dragon is phenomenal, because the Mud Dragon, being able to call whatever attribute you're trying to play with at that point in time, is going to stop almost all of the Yummy disruptions. Yummy is very layered. It does a lot of different disruptions at a lot of different times through a lot of different contacts, but almost all of them target. So having something that protects you from targeting while also removing some of the bigger threats from their field is obviously going to be fantastic. All right, guys, that's going to be it for the video. Once again, if you want to check out that spreadsheet, it's going to be in the description box down below. You'll see YGO.com. It's got everything on there all listed off. It's $35 for all of them, or if you just want to worry about Yummy, it's $20 for that one. But hey, I appreciate you watching the video. If you guys would not mind commenting, and subscribing, I'd appreciate it. And I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic day. Thanks. Bye-bye.